Hello folks, you beautiful YouTube people out there, my friends. This is Norm the Teacher again, and I'm doing another video. It's going to be another gun video, again on the Taurus G2C handgun. And today's video, I'm going to talk about the Seer. Seer, spelled S-E-A-R. And what the Seer does, what a Seer is in basically any mechanical device, is it's something, some hook, ledge, whatever, that holds on to something else to allow for that something else to be released and go somewhere. In this case, it's the firing pin of the gun. If you have a let's say a hook like this, and then you have a hook on a firing pin like this, and the firing pin goes, it's just hooked onto the Seer. The firing pin's under spring tension now, and when the Seer drops or releases, the firing pin goes forward and fires the gun. Well, that's exactly what the Seer does in the Taurus G2C here, or any gun for that matter. Now there's actually the Taurus manual that where I get a lot of my part names from is this manual that's provided with the Taurus G2C handgun. And in the manual there's a diagram like right here, where I get the names of parts, and that actually isn't the one, that was a different model. This is the model that I have. The Seer, there's actually two of them. The Taurus only describes one. Now the one that they describe it's in the breech area of the gun. The breech area of a gun is the rear part of the gun. The front part is the muzzle. The rear part is the breech area of a gun. Okay, in the breech area of the gun, or the frame here of the gun, you'll see that there's a mechanism right here. This thing right here. Now I'm filming with two cameras, so I got to show both cameras what I'm doing here. Now notice what happens when I pull the trigger and I have a little bit of downward pressure on this with this screw head that I have here, or screw point. Notice how it goes down. See how it goes down? Right there. But notice how when I got to show the other camera also. Right there, going down. But notice when I have the trigger, when I don't put a little bit of pressure with this screw down there, it doesn't go. This doesn't go down. It doesn't go down. Now the reason it doesn't go down is because when the slide is off of the gun, this Seer is not exactly in default position. When the slide is on the gun and the gun is cocked, and what I mean by cocked is the firing pin spring, which is this, or the firing pin rather, which is that. With this. Well, this hook, and I call this the firing pin hook, is hooked over that Seer. And the way it gets hooked over there is when you shoot the gun, the slide goes backwards, that hook goes over the Seer and catches the firing pin hook, and then the recoil spring brings the gun back, and your firing pin is now hooked onto this Seer with the spring stretched out or under tension. Depends on the design of the gun, whether the spring is actually pulled out or compressed. Either way, there's spring tension on the firing pin, and it's ready to pull the trigger and shoot. Now, with that hook on there, that puts a little bit of downward motion or downward pressure on that firing, that sear. So when you take your gun apart and you say, well, I'm pulling the trigger, but that sear just isn't going down, how does it release the firing pin hook? Well, it does, because when the gun's fully assembled and that's pressed down, then it does do it. Right there. Okay. Now, I mentioned that, but there's actually two sears. The Taurus manual only mentions one in their manual, and they only point out one in their diagram. There's actually two sears, and I've given them my own names. One I call the single action sear, and the other one I call the double action sear. Now, if you don't know the difference between single action and double action in gun terminology, watch my video that I made that explains single action and double action guns. I won't explain it here because I have another video that explains it in detail. Well, one's single action, one's double action. When the gun is being fired and it comes back and cocks the gun this way, and then comes forward and is ready to shoot, the firing pin is hooked on this rear sear. This is what I call single action sear. Okay, but you can have the gun shoot in double action on your first shot under certain circumstances, and have it hooked over a different sear. Now, this other sear I'm talking about is right here. You know, I have pointed out this one. Have pointed out that one. Now I'm going to point out this one. Notice how this here is moving. This part moving here. It's moving on this whole part that here that is connected to this and connected to the trigger is called the rear support. Taurus calls it the rear support, and that's what this is connected to. Well, when you pull the trigger, this moves back. This also can take this firing pin spring. The firing pin can be hooked over it. You pull back, and then when it gets to a certain point, this lowers, which releases the firing pin. In my other camera here, when you pull this back, the firing pin hook can be hooked over this. It gets back to a certain point here, it lowers, and then when it lowers, the firing pin goes forward and shoots the gun. That's the double action sear. All right. Now, you don't normally shoot double action with the gun. What that feature that I just described there actually is, it's the trigger, it's the restrike feature. Let's say you shoot the gun. Hot in here. Woo. Let's say you shoot the gun and it doesn't go off. You say, oh, I got a dud round. Well, you can pull the trigger again, and then to try to get the round to go off by striking it again on the primer. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But anyway, it has a restrike figure. You can restrike it as many times as you want. Just keep pulling the trigger. And that firing pin will keep hitting that primer over and over and over as you do that. That's the restrike feature. That's where you are shooting the gun in single or double action mode, because you're doing two actions with the trigger. You're pulling the trigger back to bring back the firing pin, and then the trigger releases the firing pin and it goes forward. So that's double action mode. So that's basically the sear that I wanted to explain in this video. Now, double action mode, can you shoot double action mode on your first shot the first time you try to shoot that round? There is a way to do it. And I don't know if I want to tell you it, because it's a hack to this gun to do it. You don't have to do anything to modify the gun. but it is a way to get double action. It makes it safer to carry the gun chambered that way. But I don't know for sure if I want to tell you on this video, or any video for that matter, because it creates one little problem later on. It's a little bit more dangerous to put your gun back together after you've had it apart. So I don't know if I'm going to broadcast that feature, but excuse me. Someday I may do a video on that hack though. But anyway, that's basically it. Now, the way that double action works is when the gun is uncocked. Notice how far ahead this sear is. It goes way back here. So that firing pin hook is behind here when the gun is not cocked anymore. You shot that. You pulled the trigger, tried to shoot it. It didn't shoot, and so you're going to try a restrike. The firing pin hook will be behind that, and then when you pull back, it pulls back that firing pin, and you'll notice the difference because it's a harder trigger pull. We're now working against. You're doing this action with that sear I just showed you. You're pulling back this hook. Get back here. You're pulling back that hook right there. That's kind of a strong spring. It's kind of hard to do it. Right there. Pulling back that right there. Right? That's why it'll feel different. The reason you don't feel that tension when the gun cocks this way by having recoiled and then coming back is the the recoil of the round did all that work for you. Okay, so that's the sear, and there's actually two of them. See if there's anything else I want to mention on that. I can't really think of anything right now. So you now know what latches onto the trigger hook. And that name that I use, trigger hook, really isn't in the Taurus manual either. They named the firing pin, and I shouldn't call it trigger hook. I meant to say firing pin hook. That firing pin hook is not named separately in Taurus manual, so don't try to look for it and find it. It's just the name I gave that hook. Makes it easier to explain things that way. So that's the Seer, or Seers, S-E-A-R-S, for the Taurus G2C. And I'm getting closer to doing the final video on this gun, and then I'll start on another gun. So, again, I want to thank you for watching my videos, and subscribe if you want to be notified of any future videos that I'm going to do. And I will catch you in the next video, folks. So long.